Welcome to the Electric Liberty Land pre-roll for episode number 193, where I want to tell you about NorthSpokaneCBD.com, where you can get all of your tinctures, all of your CBD needs for flowers, for pills, for, I don't know, oil rubs. You can rub it on your head like George Costanza and Seinfeld and slather it over a Haitian maid's body. Long story short, you can get a discount by using Lions at checkout for 15% off your order. Again, NorthSpokaneCBD.com for the North Spokane Hemp Company. Check that out. And additionally, I want to remind you about writing us a 5-star review. If you do that, we will take all these 5-star reviews and questions that you ask within them. We will answer them on either a main show or do some special side feed show to address them. And thank you for everybody that's written them so far. Okay, thank you and goodbye.
Welcome to Electric Liberty Land, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
Hey, welcome to Electric Liberty Land, guys. I am Brian McWilliams, and before I bring in my special guest today, comedian, podcaster, and Twitter pedophile huntress Chrissie Mayr, I wanted to give a quick shout out because we got a lot more listeners. We have a lot more patron subscribers or Patreon subscribers. And I want to give a big thank you to Dave Smith for really promoting our show. As you guys probably know, or maybe you don't, we have been around for a very long time. We have 3 unique podcasts here. I am the comedy, culture, and current events one in the middle, right smack dab here in the middle of your hump day Wednesday. So, big thanks to Dave. However, I have to address a filthy rumor that Dave talked about on his last show, or maybe it's 2 shows ago now, saying that I might be Al-Qaeda. Now, whether that is true, I won't address, but I will respond with this very pertinent piece of information, which is thus. Dave Smith, FYI, masturbates with mittens made of Ron Paul's pubic hair. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I applaud it. Whatever gets you off is fine. And I know you don't get a lot of time to do that kind of thing. You have a wife at home. You have a baby at home. We're all locked together in COVID. I have the same scenario here. I understand. And it probably feels nice. A little scratchy, but nice. My problem is he overpaid to get those mittens. I don't want to say what he paid. I don't want to bring more shame upon the Dave Smith household. But overpaid. And for a Jew, that is absolutely unforgivable. So shame on you, Dave. Pod War, it's on. No, seriously, though, thank you to Dave Smith for bringing us the attention for the debate between Dave and Andy Craig. I listened to it. I will not spoil it for the rest of you, but I will say that I definitively came down on one side over the other one, and the side of which I came down on was not that of Andy Craig. I just swear to God, I mean, the cackling laughter 4 or 5 different times, just the amount of highfalutin looking down the nose at miscategorization that happened in that debate was something to behold. And I went in really having no idea who Andy Craig was. So make sure to check that out and tune in. That was Monday's podcast with Dave Smith and Andy Craig. All right. Let's get into it. And also, by the way, thank you to all new Patreon subscribers. That's patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. I will have a little 10-minute bonus episode that I'll put there with Chrissie at the end of this. And also, guys, just to remind you, Degenerate Gamblers, our ridiculous storytelling, shit-talking, and gambling show that we do for our Pride members, we are starting up the league on Thursday. Too late to get in the fantasy league that we're doing, but you can get in a league wherein you get $500 Lions bucks to start. You pick games against the spread or over under, and we will give you a free t-shirt if you can beat us. But again, this is only for our supporters. So Degenerate Gamblers is one of our show, along with Conspiracy Corners, bonus interviews like you're going to hear with Chrissie, and all of the other good stuff that we do for our supporting listeners. We got a ton of them. We're hoping you stick around. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. That's the exact same line I used on my wife. And look, she's still here. So there you go. Okay, without further ado, guys, let's get into it. All right, so as mentioned, I am here with Chrissie Mayr, and Chrissie is host of Wet Spot over at Compound Media. Chrissie has her own podcast, the Chrissie Mayr Podcast, and also has been on, I just heard you on Michael Malice moments ago. Well, not moments ago, maybe a couple days ago.
Wow. Yeah, that You're Welcome show is really good. He is a smart cookie. Yeah, it's very different from the show he does on Compound Media, which is called Nightshade, and that's more of like a newsy, like almost like monologue joke, but not really jokes, sort of jokes. He sometimes jokes.
He does. He sometimes jokes if they can be called as such.
Yeah,
It's like, I mean, it's funny because I got wind of you, and I apologize that I'd not really heard about you before, but I got wind of you because somebody reached out after, I guess, listening to my show. I don't know if he's a friend, acquaintance, lover, or booking manager. Or all the above, but reached out and said, I think you'd be great to come on the show. And the more I looked into what you were doing, I was like, oh yeah, this is, Chrissie's really interesting, and clearly a very independent point of view, as they say. So, first things
really?
First, I think so. Well, I mean, I've even looked at some of the podcast guests that you've had on your show, and you got Doug Stanhope, who is I think more libertarian comedian, and then you've got John Fugelsang, who is uber left. So
Uber left.
But tell me a little bit about your, I mean, where are your politics at, if you can define them? Where do you situate in this entire conversation?
People love to know where I'm at politically. I would say, like, in general, the middle, but if I had to, I would say more libertarian. And it's interesting, like by 2020 definition, like the fact that I interviewed Roger Stone would make me a huge Trump lover, So it takes nothing today for someone to consider you like far right, and it's like it's funny because the more far left someone is, the more far right they will think you will be, even if you're just a little bit right of center, even if you're just still like firmly in the middle, it since they're way the fuck over there, it takes nothing for you to be like a fucking Proud Boy. So
for sure. Well, and I like the Roger Stone. He's actually been on our show as well a while ago now. We haven't had him on, I don't think, since he's been gotten out of, I guess he's still in trouble, but
he's hot right now.
Yeah. My God. But yeah, I mean, it is fascinating. Like, you talk to people, and there's a girl, Bridget Fedesi, who I know from out here in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's how you say her last name.
Fedesi. Yeah, I know.
I'm like, Fatesi.
Yeah, she had the same experience though. It's that you think you're just kind of in a logical place and you get pushed away because people kind of condemn you. And I mean, that's kind of like every conversation you have now, whether or not and it's getting such a smaller and smaller window of what you can talk about and how you can couch your opinion. But it seems like if you vouch any sort of okay for what Trump may have done in one point of view or another, or if you argue against something on the left you think is a little bit ridiculous, the immediate response, whether you're addressing anything to do with Trump or not, is, oh, well, you must be a Trumper.
Yeah, and it sucks. And you could be an objective observer of the world and be like, oh, no, Trump has legitimately done good by these groups of people. These policies have been beneficial. The economy was doing great. People's 401ks were doing great. But if you point out the obvious, even if it's something in his favor, you're a huge Trump lover. Oh, right. You're a MAGA person. It's like, no, I just am alive observing the truths of reality.
Right. And it's like something, you hit the nail on the head, I think. Our reality seems to have become absolutely twisted and warped to where objective reality is no longer a thing. And I think that was something that, the postmodernists were believing in, your truth is your truth and history is irrelevant. But I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, how do you even go about talking to people in everyday society? And then also, I mean, I know nobody can do comedy really anymore because they're, well, maybe slowly, but as a comedian, how do you work with that? Because objectively, as comedians, and I've done a bunch of comedy in the past as well, we're looking to reality as the basis, at least, for some of what we're trying to mock. And if nobody's reality is the same, how can we possibly joke about it?
It is really difficult. Like, I had a girlfriend just this week. I haven't talked to her in like 5 months, and she texted me to be like, hey, are you pro-Trump? And I was like, I haven't talked
How
to
are
you
you
in
doing?
four.
Great to hear from
I
you
haven't
as
talked to you
well.
I haven't talked to you in 4 or 5 months. And like,
Yeah.
that's the first thing you say, which is like, to me, that is so suspect. It's like, what kind of a friend are you if you're not like, hey, how are you? I know we haven't spoken the whole lockdown, but
Yeah.
like, what's going on? And whatever. It's like, I'm not a perfect friend either, but like, I don't bust out of months of no contact with something like that, because that's like, and so I was like already skeptical, and I was like, what? I was like, okay, doing good. Like, where is this coming from? She was like, oh, I was just checking out your podcast and, Roger Stone, etc. And I was like, yeah, that tells me that you maybe saw my pinned tweet.
You
Maybe
listened to one episode.
Yeah.
The etc. says all you need to know about the rest. She clearly listened to nothing else. It's like the old Seinfeld yada, yada, yada. It's like clearly didn't listen to anything else.
Exactly what a few of other people, like when I was talking about a few other around me, said, like, yeah, etc. means she did not, she has no other examples to cite. It was just that. And it sucks because like you have to make that choice. You're like, okay, in every moment, right? With like, if you're not in a show, you're like, okay, you have to quickly evaluate, like, okay, how close of a friend is this? Do I want to now take on like the project of re-educating this obviously brainwashed person? Do I have the time for that? Do I want to spend the time doing that? Like, will they listen? Are they open? And then I kind of realized, no, like it's not, I don't know her well enough to know that like, that she could be red pilled even, to just start with like, the media is a big fucking lie. And like, it's there's years of shit to work through here. And I just sort of realized like, no, it's probably just easier for me in this moment to lie to this girl because I'm probably never going to see her. Maybe I'll hang out with her sometime next year. Like we're not that tight. And like, I just was like, I had to just be like, and I just didn't like that question. I was like, well, what if I was? I'm like, I didn't vote for him, but like, I just didn't like that she was asking me that based off of one interview. I talked to a person, really, like me talking to a person, me interviewing a person that you deem is problematic makes me pro-Trump. Like I just hated everything about it. And so I was like,
exactly. And you can use examples on either side too, of people you say, oh, well, you shouldn't, I hate the whole concept of don't give them a platform, which is just goes against everything, free speech, general logic and reason. It's like it's been used for decades to justify our foreign policy of bombing the shit out of people. Well, don't talk to them. And they're like, look, just stop killing my children and we'll leave you guys alone. But it's also kind of like brings back the thing. And I've also had friends do that same thing to me where, they basically unfollowed me, told me I'm an imbecile for some tweet. There was something, just recently, a guy that I used to play poker with, he messaged me and specifically saying, are you really this big of an idiot? And it was because Trump had said, allegedly, according to anonymous sources that nobody can find, that the World War II veterans in the cemetery were a bunch of losers. And that's something empirical. You read it and you go,
right.
Why would anybody say that? Number one, let alone the president of the United States in front of people nonetheless.
Let alone this president. Yeah, he would not. He's like... all the military guys love him. The police love him. Like that's his people. So
what I wanted to ask you though is like, here's something I was thinking about while you're talking about like, I just lied to this person. Is it's almost like, we're being put through these purity tests where they're like, you should cut out your friends and your relatives from your life now if they're Trump supporters, if they don't believe in what you believe in. I mean, really, I think it's definitely gotten like ratcheted up a notch. But haven't we always lied to our friends and our relatives about shit like nonstop? We lie to people for the benefit of relationships. It's kind of like how you get around as a person.
You have to. And like, that's the thing is I wasn't looking to cut this girl out of my life. I just was like, all right, if we keep talking and our conversations are more frequent and more like politics centered, like, sure, I'll like really tell her how I think, but to come out of nowhere with like a very judgy text like that, I was like, ugh, I don't like a real friend. I don't think would come at you like that. I think a real friend would be like, oh, cool. Like, let's talk about what you've been getting into.
Or at least couch it in something. How are you doing? How was your COVID? Have you gained weight or lost weight during COVID? That kind of bullshit talk. You don't just come out guns blazing with a very weighted text.
Exactly. You start with, so can you fit into your pants? Because I can't fit into mine. Let's catch up. And and same thing with my dad. Like my mom died a couple of years ago. He just started dating this new lady. And like, we never really talked about politics, me and my dad. He was always like rogue. Like, I don't know if he's more like, I don't know where I would put him. Like anarchist? I don't know. He's like a cynic, and he would always kind of vote for like Ron Paul or whatever. And I don't know how. I was on the phone with him, and like I don't know how Trump came up, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I don't like how he speaks." And I'm like, "That's it? That's all you got? You've been on this earth for 73 years, and that's the best you can do on your thoughts on Trump? Like really? You haven't looked into it more than just like MSM sound bites?" I was so disappointed. I was like, I don't mind disagreeing with this dude, but I was just like, wow, there's no thought at all put into your
you also wonder how, if you're like, oh, I don't really like the way Trump speaks, then you hear Biden going up there, stumbling over his words, making no coherent sense, and you're like, well, so he's speaking better empirically right now if we're gonna compare apples to oranges?
Biden's farting on camera, like come on. It's like, you can't compare him.
I feel like that's something that should cross over boundaries of like, we can all laugh at Biden farting on camera. Like I was at a barbecue for Labor Day, right? And I'm out with some buddies, and that one buddy's just like uber leftist, just like crazy left. I talked about it actually on the last podcast I did, because I talked to his daughter who I'm trying to convince to vote for Joe Jorgensen.
Trying to bone her?
Yeah, I'm trying to seed her libertarianism, but gently. But
you're trying to seed her.
Well, I mean, she's underage. Maybe I shouldn't use that specific terms, especially with you. We'll get into the Twitter pedophile hunting soon enough.
You gotta wait a
Don't
couple
put me
years.
on your list.
All right.
But I'm talking to him, and he pulls out the video. I don't know if you saw it, of an Antifa guy tries to use a Molotov cocktail, drops it on the ground because he fucks it up, and then it catches his feet on fire. You haven't seen this video?
Was that the guy running around with his feet on fire? I had no idea what caused that, but I did see that. I just knew that it took him forever to get his feet to stop burning.
Clearly, he's going to have penguin toes now for the rest of his life.
Really? You think that's?
I'm sure. I mean,
you don't think he wore fireproof socks to that?
Do they make fireproof socks?
I don't know, but if any of these Antifa tards, like, you should be going out head to toe, fireproof, bulletproof, everything. At least, or else why leave your house? Yeah.
Wrap them suckers up like baked potatoes. But some clever person put Footloose to the video, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And that's even really funny. People on the left can get behind that. So I mean, there's ways to break through for sure. But tell me a little bit about, so when you're doing comedy now, like let's say you go out. I was listening to, actually I was just checking out the Fugelsang interview you did on your podcast, because I was curious what he had to say on there. And you're talking about doing some live shows now. And I tried to do a Zoom show which got canceled because HR got involved for some company. You're going out now. Are you staying away from any political material when you go out now, or are you like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna say what's funny and just hope that the audience isn't going to be so embedded with their own biases that they're going to at least try to take it as it is?
In the shows that I've done, they have been sort of like friends of Compound Media shows. Like they have so many fans, and like we're kind of like a tight knit group where like talent and fans, like we'll all be in the same group chat, So I was really fortunate to have like quite a few outdoor shows like with fans, this summer. Like not as many as you normally would, but it's like, given all this bullshit, it's nice to have any. And they would be, in backyards of people's houses. And no, I did not have to censor myself there, which is like really amazing, because like this is a time where you don't know how a given group of people is going to feel. And you do have to like tread lightly and, figure out, like, not only are you dealing with your own rustiness, but you're like, oh, where does everybody lie on the mask issue? Yeah. Like, how many people realize this was made in a lab and completely planned? Like, but with the Compound Media fans, it's like, we're all starting from the same like level of awakeness, and we have that same foundational understanding, of kind of like what we're making fun of and like what our tastes are. And it was just great to be like hanging out with 30 people. No one's wearing a mask. Like it's just as close to normal as it could be. And these shows have been great. Like a combination of like, taking tweets that have done well over the months, turning those into jokes, and like, taking some of the old stuff too. It's like there's definitely no going back to your old set after this.
Yeah.
I mean,
How
it
bold
would
are
be
you
so
at taking
tone
the
deaf.
tweets? Because that's like, I mean, Twitter's it's definitely good for testing out material for comics, but then you also like, you put some, like, especially now where people go and try to cancel you and dig up old shit you put out that's, maybe wasn't the best or un-PC or has little race connotations to it. I mean, how bold are you? Will you go out and tell a tweet that has 0 likes on it? Do you believe in your own ability and what's funny?
That's the thing, is like you wouldn't just like go out unless it was a really well written joke. You wouldn't just like go out and like, I wouldn't just say a tweet. I would be like, okay, if it's a tweet that does well, it's like a real feeling, and I think I would take that and maybe insert it inside of a rant on a larger theme. So it's like if even if it is a little bit of a risk, it doesn't have to stand on its own. You can kind of sandwich it between things that work or in the theme of an idea of something that you're passionate about. So even if it like doesn't get off perfectly, then people still understand where you're coming from. And it's like, maybe it can be more like of a storytelling point, or maybe it's just more of like a rant, right? Like, and then, or you could just like straight up try it. Like, I've been so lucky with these audiences. Like they're like forgiving, and they know me too. Like they watch Wet Spot, they watch my podcast. So there is a little bit of that, like, oh, they already kind of like you going into it, which is really amazing.
You've already done the foreplay, and they've come to fuck, is what you're saying.
They've come to fuck, exactly. Yeah, I was supposed to do one park show for Stand Up New York. It was ringed out like a week or so ago. I'm sure I'll get back and do a couple of those. But that's tricky because like they don't have a microphone, so you're like yelling to people at a park.
Ross Ulbricht is serving 2 consecutive life sentences plus 40 years for creating a means for individuals to anonymously make online exchanges using Bitcoin. His actions did not create victims. For nothing more than creating a marketplace, the government locked him up and threw away the keys. Let's get Ross pardoned and get victimless crimes off of the books. Hashtag Free Ross. Free Ross. Free Ross. Free Ross.
Yeah, that is the intro to hashtag Free Ross, a song. Take me a song, the piano man. Fucking drunk Brian in the subway trying to make a few dollars. Yes, that is a song by Tyler Colford, a.k.a. Crypto Man, a buddy of ours, and he has put all of the proceeds that are going to be coming from this song, all of the sales, any of the downloads he gets, all of that money is going towards freeing Ross Ulbricht and fighting against victimless crime, especially compared to everything in the world. We've got Ross Ulbricht sitting in there for providing a platform for people to trade goods voluntarily, non-violently. Absolutely absurd. So Tyler's putting all of the money into supporting him, trying to help those legal fees out, trying to raise awareness. Guys, you can even just play this to help the algorithm. Just play it on mute while you sleep on your computer. It all helps. So go follow Crypto Man, give Tyler Colford a shout out, and remember hashtag
We
free
spent 50,000 a year for each in the clink. I said land of the free, or scapegoats and sheep.
So there's really not much that separates me from the crackheads at that point. But I'll still
Sometimes
do
the crackheads are actually getting bigger laughs than you.
Yeah. That they're the crackheads because they haven't gained weight over quarantine.
By the way, talking about this, coronavirus, and I'm not to talk about comedy because I want to ask about, where are we at in comedy and race, and then talk about Blazing Saddles getting a fucking trigger warning in front of it for HBO Max and shit like that. But, the whole mask thing, like, everybody's out there. You've got homeless people. And LA, like I'm in LA, you're in New York, right? I think you're in New York City.
Yeah, Westchester.
Okay, Westchester. So, a nicer part of the city, a little suburby. I'm in the suburbs too of LA, but there's still homeless people everywhere. And, one of the things when coronavirus came out, they're like, oh, well, there's going to be this coronavirus is going to wipe these homeless people out, right? This highly deadly disease. If you got all these other things.
Yeah, Bill Gates would have loved for that to have happened. Yeah.
But yet they're thriving. The homeless population has not been decimated at all. Seems to be impervious. It's like shooting a zombie in the chest. It does nothing. They just keep coming at you. So yeah. I mean, what are we supposed to believe with this entire scenario? If you've got the people that are supposed to be the most vulnerable and deathly ill among us, who, by the way, clearly have immune systems that are jacked up from fucking themselves up all the time. Well, it seems like your immune system's the cure to all this.
Yeah, they're like, oh, really? 5 Asians cough into my mouth for breakfast every day. I got this. Like, yeah, they're stronger than everybody.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so bullshit. We had like Cuomo and de Blasio moving homeless into luxury hotels on the Upper West Side because they wanted to socially distance them and couldn't do it in the homeless shelters, which is like insanely bullshit. It's like so obviously a plot to drive down the market prices and the property value of the Upper West Side. It's like they're like literally trying to scare away anybody who has any money from the city. It's whack. And then they eventually, finally enough people complained and they're like, oh yeah, maybe we could put them in Staten Island. Yeah, maybe you could put them in Staten Island. Yeah.
Ship them off to those sons of bitches. Well, yeah, circling back. So staying on comedy for a bit. What do you think right now? I mean, today, I made my fair share of race-related jokes in the past. I don't shy away from it too often. But what do you think? I mean, can you only make jokes now? If you're a comic, can you only in this day and age make jokes about white people? Or do you think that there is room for people to make any jokes about any other sort of race? I mean, at this point, would you make a joke about race to anybody? Have you heard other people try it? Because it seems as though this is something that the left may have successfully turned into a taboo that we might never claw back.
Yeah, it's like if you're comparing it to like medicine, I guess, like making fun of white people is like first aid. Like anybody can do it. Yeah. You're not taking any risks. No one's going to die. But like
the Boy Scouts are wrapping you in white fragility.
Yeah. You're like, ugh. Like, how much training do you have? It's like, okay. But then it takes a truly skilled and I believe nothing is off limits. Even today, a really good skilled comedian could like pull anything off, like if they're funny enough and their writing is good enough and they're like passionate or whatever, like they, nothing is off limits and, people will let you know when a joke's not working for you, but it's almost like, yeah, making fun of white people, super easy softball. And then making fun of any other race, it's like skilled surgery. It's like, well, you better know what you're doing because the stakes are higher. And I don't know, maybe this is a terrible metaphor. I just think like it's trendy and accepting. It's always been very trendy and accepting the last 10 years to like anti-white male, anti-men in general. Like somebody that looks like me should be complaining about men and the patriarchy and like how much I hate my dad. I mean, like I don't love my dad's okay.
You got a little bit of that.
He did okay, sure. Yeah. Like I don't have the best relationship with my dad, but I'm not going to lead with that. I'm going to try to like be, have more range as a person. So it's just like hitting all those like classic typical notes. And I don't know. I feel like people are getting a little bit tired of it. I feel like, yeah, sure. You could still make fun of white people, but like, I don't know. I think it has to be a little bit better. It's going to take a little bit more than usual. I think a lot of people are really tired of it. I think a lot of people in the middle are just like really over it at this point. It's like, it feels like a war on white people. And it's like, a lot of like white people are like, I didn't fucking do anything to you guys. Like, we're not privileged, like my dad was a fucking landscaper. We didn't have health insurance for a long time. Like I shared a room with my sister, wore her clothes my whole life. Like, none of that feels privileged to me, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's like one of those things where, the entire, nuance has been eliminated. So the nuance of between, yes, there's some people that are white and they're ultra rich, and there's definitely some people that are white and they're privileged and they've received some sort of benefit. But at the same time, like you're saying, there are millions upon millions. White people are still the majority for now and had been for quite some time. But between those massive amounts of people, there's so much poverty. There's so much meth addiction. There's so much death. There's so much everything. Just all the people that build all these buildings you see now are predominantly white workers that died falling off the Empire State Building. Every worker fell off the Empire State Building, died white. So yeah, there's a lot of both, and nobody wants to acknowledge that. At the end of the day, it has been several generations, and while there's some benefit that you could argue has been accrued by certain parts of the population, the rest of us are just trying to get along the best damn way we can, abhor racism. And the average person on the street that's white is probably, odds are, some of the least likely race, when it comes to racist thoughts, the least likely person to have outrageous race-related thoughts of almost anybody you'll meet worldwide, the American white. I mean, we've been preached this language. I grew up completely colorblind, anti-racist.
Yeah.
And now we're being taught that we have to be colorblind again.
Our grandparents were racist, right? Our grandparents were racist. Our parents, like a little less so. Generation Xers, not at all. Anybody who grew up during the 90s, not racist. Like I feel like it's very rare unless it's like your parents like drilled that into you growing up. Like nobody gave a shit about that. And like millennial, like I'm technically a millennial. I don't really I don't know. Feel like I identify
I'm also
as one.
tail end millennial, I think.
But same thing, race is not really a thing. And then now you have like these younger couple generations where like they're obsessed with race and it's like going back into racism through like the back door. It's like the end result is still racism again, but now it's like you're doing it from this weird moral high ground. And
from that moral high ground, you're basically eliminating the chance, satire has been eliminated. Apu from The Simpsons is now, ostracized, even though the entire point of the character was to show a stereotype and then humanize it and put it in funny situations where
who needs the Quickie Mart? Yeah. I do. Yeah.
We both need the Quickie Mart. And then, going into Blazing Saddles, you've got a movie that was groundbreaking in every way. One of the greatest comedies ever created by Mel Brooks, has stood the test of time. And people would watch it together. I remember watching it with my dad when I was little. You see how dumb the attitudes of racism are and how well this guy handled it. And it works so perfectly. And then you've got HBO tacking on this intro that says, here's why these white people are bad and racist. And here's why this guy's good. And here's the context. I mean, I can see you not shake your head a little bit already, so I'll let you talk about it. But I mean, is there any benefit to this, or is it just destroying the satire? I mean, can you imagine a comedy set where they explained all the details of the comedy set before you went into it to make sure you weren't going to get too offended by the comedy set? And isn't it effective?
Like, I think that's just taking away it's just to assume that your audience is not intelligent enough that this was made at a point in time with a certain set of values, beliefs, opinions. Like, it's icky. It's like an icky corporate glaze has to like be on top of everything to make everything okay. And it's like, we don't have to make everything okay. Like, many generations before us lived their whole lives without trying to make everything okay. And it's like, yeah, that's how you like grow character and have a backbone and can handle rejection and have some kind of a work ethic. So
yeah, I mean, they definitely seem to have modern day entertainment definitely has taken the approach, at least when it comes to satire and comedy. I feel like they have very much decided that we are too stupid to appreciate finer points and nuance in comedy, and that it has to be very blatant, or there's topics that are completely taboo and cannot be touched, at least when it comes to the broader corporate mainstream.
Or they're just so afraid of being canceled that they have to do disclaimer on top of disclaimer, to the point where like it kind of like ruins it a little bit. You're like, ugh. So it's like, this is the cost of your fear of being canceled and being, like having to pay out for hurt feelings. I don't know what the end result would be, but
and so, I mean,
so annoying.
It seems like it's it's counterproductive. I mean, I'll give examples of, the Uber. I keep saying Uber. I got to stop saying Uber in this fucking podcast. And like, Chrissie, how's your podcast? Talk to a Nazi.
Are you sponsored by Uber?
No, I am sponsored by the Third Reich. So you wouldn't think they still sponsor podcasts. No. Let's just say the overarching wokeness, though, you see in a lot of these content, platforms coming out and how they change and alter. It's like we're talking about in general. The middle is getting sick of hearing this preaching wokeness all the time and being hit over the head of it. And I mean, I remember one example in Game of Thrones. Don't know if you're a big Game of Thrones fan or not.
I've never watched it.
Never? Oh,
nope.
Wow. Well, I don't want to spoil it for you, but I'll just, in a nutshell, say.
Go ahead, spoil it. I've had enough time to watch it.
That's true. I mean, shame on you. But maybe shame on me for watching so much of it. So at one point, there's this, dragon queen. I'm sure you've heard of her. She's riding dragons around. She's a very powerful figure. She and this other powerful figure, who are like two of the remaining thronesses that are in the game, their simple being there should say enough about the fact that they're strong. They're characters that are motivated. They're intelligent. They're alive. Everybody else is dead. They're alive. Great. And then
they made it.
Yeah, they made it. Looks like you made it. So they're still there. And yet they had this one scene after they got off of the books, because at one point it diverged from the books that they were based on. And Hollywood producers took over and writers took over. And they had this sit down confab between these women where they literally, I think verbatim said, well, it's good we're all such strong, intelligent women. And it was like, why? What? You're just making me hate them now.
It like pops the bubble. It's like we were in a nice bubble of this show and you had to fucking pop it. It's like just like in fucking Avengers when they had like the gratuitous like female empowerment scene, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like Captain Marvel literally needs nobody else. She had just like fucking flown her whole body through a ship. And then we have like, don't worry, we're behind her. And it's fucking the bug lady. And it's like, we don't need you. We don't need any of, she doesn't need any of you. Are you fucking kidding me? It was the same feeling of like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we having this like Nike swoosh moment of, it just was like unnecessary, like masturbatory, gratuitous. I don't know. Exactly. It just seemed like it was too much.
Yeah. And it's just, and the need to do that is so puzzling. Because again, it's like everybody in the industry is already woke. You know, most of the people out there are already woke. We would preach this all the time. Why? Why do you feel
they want points. They want the points for being like, look, we made this scene happen with the female empowerment because they know that scene is going to get them written up in Glamour, Cosmo, tons of fucking press releases, and everybody gets a big pat on the back for being pro-woman when it's like, yeah, you were already pro-woman. You didn't have to fucking like tell everybody how great you were. Like you could just let people see how great you are. That bothers me so much.
It's unbelievably aggravating. Now, have you had any issues with like feminists, third wave feminists coming after you or anything for jokes you've made or any of the things if you've taken this point of view, or they've been like, how dare you? You're hurting the women's movement by saying these things.
I did have an interesting, like it's weird because I was a feminist, like in college, like fully going around like with the feminist shirt, like it was my whole thing. It was my group. It's what
banging
I identified
all those weak
with.
dudes that pretend to be feminist.
I was not banging any dudes. I had braces in college. I was just very much learning about myself. No, I wasn't. I was not even masturbating either.
Oh, wow.
Just a lot.
What a college experience you had.
I was diving. I spent a lot of time in the pool and I was very good
sitting
at that.
On the jets. Pretending that you were
no jets.
Chrissie,
I was definitely not having sex, but don't worry, I made up for it. I know. I told her dad would be listening to this podcast, so she's. Oh no, he doesn't even know how to turn on his phone. So I for 6 years I hosted an LGBT comedy show at the Stonewall Inn, which is a national landmark bar. Well, it was a hotel, but now it's like a bar in New York City. It was the start, the moment where the Stonewall riots started in 1969, whatever, like a lot of historical importance, blah, blah, blah. I hosted a comedy show there for 6 years. It was the longest running monthly LGBT stand-up comedy show. I was actively scouting, really good, fresh LGBT talent, also getting in a lot of killers. Like I would get them to come in from the store, like spent a lot of time, gave a lot of shit about a quality, good show and like inclusive without having to constantly pat myself on the back for it, you know? And then I had this tweet about, it was like a parrot that was barking, like this dumb internet shit, there's like animals doing stuff. And I like posted that and tweeted like, oh, it looks like this bird's trying to transition or something like that. Because the bird was barking. And then like some like stupid girl or like, well, now she's probably I think she was transitioning or whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is she was like, oh, Chrissy's a whack ally. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, this is a joke. Number one, these are animals. I'm obviously kidding. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. You're somebody who like wanted to get booked and you just weren't funny or good. So I didn't book you. So it's like, taking it out. So you're making it about this. I'm not woke enough. Instead of, it's not about you're not being funny enough to get booked on this show. And even if whatever, start your own fucking show, man. Like don't tear somebody else down. Yeah. Well, I've seen a lot of that. And I didn't really plan on getting into the whole trans issue at all in this podcast, but we're just talking here, so we'll see where it goes. But I mean, it does seem like, and I've read this in a lot of publications, I've heard on a lot of podcasts and seen on Twitter, but it does seem like with the focus on trans, that a lot of traditional gay and lesbians are being very much pushed out of that tent. I mean, it's like, it's like almost like a visceral attack nonstop on. It's super offensive. They don't want to be
lesbian culture.
Yeah. they don't want to be called queer. They don't want to have like the queer title like impressed on them. Like it's like like I have friends that are like, no, I'm a lesbian. I'm 40, 50 years old. Why would I change now to like appease this mob?
Well, I've heard a lot of lesbians too have been like trans people that have transitioned that are trans, and you try to hit them. They're like, well, I'm not necessarily into that. And they're like, oh, well, then you're a bigot, and you know, horrible, and how dare you? And you're like, well, this is a little understandably odd. I've not dealt with this before, but I'm, you know, still overarchingly in support of the cause. But,
you can't be
like
into what you're into anymore. You have to be into everybody, or else there's something wrong with you. And you're a terrible person for having preferences. That blows my mind too. When it's like a lot of that anger, I think, comes from people who perhaps their transition didn't go as well as they thought. Perhaps they're not passing in the ways that they would like. So they're angry. They're not attracting the type of mate they would like to attract. And it's like anybody who is like angry with themselves is going to impress that anger on the world around them. Like people who feel chaos inside, like create and maintain chaos around them because they're not examining themselves. And,
it's a super controversial kind of, as a book by a doctor. I can't remember her name at the moment, a female doctor, but she's examining basically how a lot, especially like younger girls are transitioning or saying that they are, you know, gender dysphoric at a very, you know, shocking rate, something that is statistically impossible basically in nature. And it almost kind of makes you think, okay, well, if that's the case, if a lot of these people are kind of being peer pressured into it, maybe they're just unhappy with the situation, they're unhappy with how it's going, and they are lashing out because they are maybe lesbian. And instead of being able to comfortably ease into that, they are now being forced into this transition world that they are not really needing to be in or supposed to be in, but yet they feel trapped inside this box that's been built around by society. And
that is super, super dangerous. There's a lot of people who feel like that the reason for that statistic that you mentioned, that it is more than it's nature. In nature, it's like people haven't changed. I mean, other than our diets, that haven't changed that much in the last 100 years or so. Like, so it's like you have to. There's a lot of people who have evidence to support that the increase for this is because of schools and because it's pushed by academia. I did it in episode with Buck Angel on my podcast, and like he very much spelled out, like he's like cited all these sources, books, videos and stuff about like why academia can kind of be pointed towards this, and like it's almost like there's a push to transition, then like because then those parents, those teachers are seen as so woke and accepting, but it's like meanwhile you're kind of pushing these kids towards transitioning when really it's like they should be in a lot of therapy. And Buck is somebody who medically transitioned from female to male, like never got a penis made, but like he will admit, he's like, I straight up have gender dysphoria, and a lot of people in the community give me shit for acknowledging that I have a mental illness. And it's like, no, I have it. I had to make all these changes so that I could be happy and live my life. But he's like, that's what this I don't know, new modern woke trans community now is not acknowledging that. They won't acknowledge biology. They won't acknowledge like
and they won't have the conversation. And that's the thing is man's talking about not only, you know, trans and gender dysphoria issues, talking about anything having to do with almost, it's coming to the point where, you know, the left pretends it's, okay, we're the party of science. But then you say, well, let's talk about this because there's clearly differentiating findings here and there's real evidence to talk about it. No one's saying trans people are wrong. No one's saying to not be trans. Saying, let's have a conversation about it for the benefit of everybody involved here. And it transitions into the masks issue, you know, and what's going on with COVID and everything else, where you go, okay, we're told one thing, it changes so rapidly, but yet we're not allowed to question the orthodoxy. We're not allowed to question the findings. We have to just go along, give up, you know, our rights to free speech, our rights to dialogue. We have to hate each other because we can't apparently talk about these things, which are right out there to talk about. They're findings that are very public.
Yeah, you can't question anything. And like the new punk rock people now are Black conservatives, because to me, that's like the most brave position to be in 2020.
Smith, I think, is that the name of it? He's like an outward gay conservative Black man.
Yeah, that's like the most, I mean, people have said that's like being a conservative now is like being gay in the 50s. You're just like, you know, no one wants to be outed. And it's like, yeah, it's crazy. Like a lot of liberals will say, oh, the science. It's like, just because we have the science doesn't mean we should push kids that are going through something. We shouldn't be pushing them to transition. Like that's life-changing hormone therapy, life-changing surgeries.
Yeah.
Yikes. And a lot of them are going back. A lot of them, especially like in being in the lockdown, have detransitioned, and because it's like they're out of their routine. Maybe they're with family more. Maybe they're working on their shit, you know?
I mean, there's a very good point to be made there is, if you're not in that peer pressure bubble anymore, you're not in that strict orthodoxy of this is the way that things are and you must adhere to it. Otherwise you'll be ostracized. Yeah, it makes sense.
And of course, that's going to look attractive to you. If you're like not getting the attention you need, you're not getting the validation you need, and you feel lost and you don't feel comfortable in your body, as every kid does at some point in their life. And you say, oh, well, if I go trans, like then I get accepted, validated. I go from feeling weird to now I'm like not just neutral, but I'm special. I'm better than everybody. How are you not going to go for that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a book I started reading it's about halfway through, which is on the abuse of moral talk. And how people are, we've seen it happen over the past 10, 15 years, especially with the rise of social media. But people using the moral talk to get the advantage or to feel that moral superiority or to get the adoration from everybody else. And consequences be damned, reality be damned. They're going to go and do it because that feeling of elevation over one's peers or the general populace is so addictive that they just can't stop.
So addictive. And that's why cancel culture was like, it's such a high, it's a drug. It's like, oh, I'm taking somebody down. I'm getting them fired. They can't, if it's a creative person, it's like, oh, they're not going to, create or express ever again, all because of me. It's like, it's so much easier to tear something down than it is to build something up. And it's like the people who just spend all their time online and trolling and nasty comments or like submitting people, and trying to get people, those are like the lowest form of humans. It's like, I feel sad for them because it's like, they're not living their lives. Like they haven't found their thing,
Who's lower? Is it the scumbags that waste their time going through and pulling up these largely out of context things, or are they the worst people or the real worst people, the spineless weasels that are firing people for a tweet from 15 years ago? Or like a Washington Post story I talked about where a woman went to a Halloween party 2 years ago dressed as Megyn Kelly in blackface, making fun of Megyn Kelly, right? She went to be woke, making fun of Megyn Kelly because Megyn Kelly's talking about blackface. 2 years later, the Washington Post
very creative.
It really is. I mean, I give her credit. But that woman got fired because two woke assholes from the party went and ratted her out to the Washington Post. And the Washington Post thought that it was a great idea to write this story up. She's now fired. I mean,
because the Washington Post wants to look woke. They want to look like that they're on the right side of the issue. And that's the same thing with these companies who fire people who also aren't on the right side of the issue. It's like everyone is... The people in higher positions of management or whatever, like they're so spineless, like they're afraid of looking bad or losing their job.
Except Trader Joe's. Good job, Trader Joe's.
Good job, Trader Joe's.
Standing up. We're going to keep calling our shit Trader Jose's and whatever, and fuck you guys.
Oh, yeah. Good for them. Good for them. Yeah. They're better than the football team for sure.
Oh, God, yeah. The Washington football team. I mean,
football team.
I will say, I do think Redskin is definitely a racist term, but I don't know. Whatever, man. It's been around for so long at this point. Getting into a couple more things. So we're about 40 minutes in. And then if you don't mind doing an extra 10 minutes, little bonus content interview.
Little
bonus content. We'll put that for the behind the wall guys. But we got to talk about, we're talking about kids. We're talking about what's happening with kids. I had no idea. And I'm like looking through your Twitter feed. I'm like, where is she hunting down these freaking pedophiles? So you are apparently pedophile huntress on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I picked up a new hobby. Malice about this. Michael Malice, who very complimentarily said he has no time to come on this podcast. So thank you, Michael. But yeah, tell me a little bit about.
You seem upset about that.
It annoyed me. Big time in me, Malice, you dick. No, so tell me a little bit about this whole this whole scenario. How you became, pedophile hunter. Yeah, and because I thought it was fascinating, and I do want to talk about a little bit about the Wayfair thing, which I think is fascinating. 100%, there were kids being sold through that. There's too much coincidence.
There's too much point to that happening than it not happening. Yeah, I think people are like well, it's a coincidence, because it's like, what's easier for you to keep saying that things are coincidences, or to have your fucking whole mind blown and to have a very uncomfortable paradigm shift and like rethink everything you know about media and Hollywood and society, and none of this is new and it's been going on for hundreds of years. So there's this website called Social Blade that you can use to look people up, see trends in their social media followings. You know, I would use it to like see like what popular comedians may have purchased Twitter followers and other reasons. You know, I check my own shit or whatever. And people had been mentioning like Chrissie Teigen has these questionable tweets. Like she was talking about how much she loved toddlers and tiaras years back, like between like the Twitter years. I also love
toddlers and tiaras, I have to admit. I have to also.
Okay, then.
Not for pedophile reasons. I like it for the gross old people that put them out there.
You're on the list. So these were like the tweets between like 2009, 2013, whatever. And I just was like, that's weird. She's tweeting a lot about like pizza, which is, you know, there's like a whole pedophile code. The words correlate to foods, blah, blah, blah. And so I just was like, I on a whim kind of looked up, or my boyfriend looked up Chrissie Teigen, and we saw like a big red number in the media section, in the media column. It said negative almost 30,000. And I was like, that's a lot of tweets to delete. Yeah. Like I've never even, not even close, like just maybe a dozen tweets I've deleted ever. So I was like, this is a lot.
The time alone to take and go through like indicates
that you need a team.
Mass purging, you know, keyword search purge had to have happened.
For sure. And so I tweeted at Chrissie Teigen, like, hey, a lot of celebrities have been really busy since Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested. Like, Chrissie Teigen, why did you delete 30,000 tweets? And she wrote me back, which never should have happened. I was like a 15K not verified nothing person. Like, what is she even doing looking at her unverified, right? Shouldn't she be better than that? Like, shouldn't she be like in verified land with a fucking hot towel? I don't know what verified Twitter is like. I imagine there's shoulder massages and fucking hand jobs. I don't know.
People personally come in from Twitter and notify you when there's something you should respond
to. Like there's like a butler at the door.
There's one. It's
like
butler
it's like Jeeves knocks on the door and be like, "Excuse me, a tweet from the president." You know, exactly. That's how I imagine it is. So she responds to me for some reason, saying like, "Actually, it was 60,000, and I did it because of people like you. You think you're a detective because you see that I tweeted about toddlers and tiaras, you know, whatever, 7 years ago. Oh, and I'm afraid for my family." And then she blocked 1 million people, and then she got all her PR. She blocked 1 million people, which I was part of. I may have started the hashtag Chrissie Teigen blocked me.
What's the search category to block all these million people? Like, how do they
define? It was so that's what it was. She said to Twitter, like, so she blamed it all on QAnon, right? Which is a group of people. They're non-violent people. They just are curious and want the truth. A lot of people call them conspiracy theorists, but honestly, they're more just like free thinkers, free spirits. I gotta
tell you this real quick because it's too funny. So you remember you talking to your friend, reached out and were like, "Hey, wait, what do you think about Trump?" My sister did the same fucking thing to me with QAnon. Reached out, she goes, "You support QAnon?" And I was like,
wow.
I'm not sure what it is. I literally had to Google it, and I'm like, yes, eat it. You know,
out of nowhere. Yeah. That's annoying. That's the thing. When it's family, it's like I would almost be like honest and like, what, you know? Yeah. Because what am I going to do?
Yeah, I mean, like, so QAnon, I mean, the whole and the Trump thing of he's the, you know, trying to get the pedophiles out type of thing, you know. And my wife actually supports Trump. Well, maybe might support Trump because she read about adrenochrome, ruined her life for a month and gave her nightmares because we have a little girl. We have a little 7-month-old baby.
It's fucking scary. And it's easier to pretend that these things don't exist and that, you know, that's for like my whole life. I was like, what? Satanic cults? Like, that's not a thing that's happened in this century. And you're like, no, it very much is a thing. And you know, that's what it was too. Like in March, like I did Sam Tripoli's podcast and he was telling me about Tom Hanks. And I was like starting to just like slowly put it together. I watched Out of Shadows. I watched Fall the Cabal, which is like a 10-part series. It was on YouTube at the time. Now it's probably on BitChute. And just like, I was just slowly putting it all together. A couple of sleepless nights later, just you're like, oh shit. And then you can't go back. And you're like, okay, well now I know the deal. Like you're operating
and
from
Joe
a better
versus
place.
The volcano. He went to an entire island, right? Joe versus Volcano, great movie. No children on the entire island.
That doesn't sound like fun. You're going to have children on your island.
Yeah. Sorry, God.
So yeah, and of course everyone
Yeah.
knows about Epstein. That's like not taboo anymore. That's a real thing. So she responded to say that it was twice the amount of tweets that I had said, and sure enough, Social Blade the next day reflected the total amount because they do cut off at some point during the day, and she made it all about like QAnon being like annoying researchers, and like no one gives a fuck about her family. We just want answers, and no one even cares a fuck about her. No one's gonna do anything to you physically. We just like want answers for these creepy tweets. And I sent the thing, and meanwhile, like after I sent the tweet, it was just like got so much attention. There was like so many people behind me, like ready with proof, and which I didn't know or expect either. And I was like, oh, wow, these people have been onto her for years. Like they had a lot of saved tweets of hers. And she had been on the flight log. Her and Legend were on the Epstein flight logs. So it's just a lot of it was. I
didn't realize that they were actually on the flights to Epstein Island.
A lot of it was coming together to all that stuff. And then you're like, oh, Oprah and Harvey Weinstein, super fucking tight. Ellen, there's so much. It's such a web. And, so meantime, so after she blocks a million people, she gets out, releases a lot of press releases. Oh, Chrissy Teigen's afraid for her family. She's afraid of QAnon. Oh, this is far right. Like she's creating this narrative, right? And she's creating an enemy so that she gets to be the victim. And then Twitter, like the next day, she was like, Twitter, you're going to have to do something about this actually scary harassment or else I might leave. It's like, oh, God, we could never survive Chrissy Teigen leaving Twitter, the self-proclaimed mayor of Twitter. How will we ever survive? Meanwhile, she's like cancel queen. She loves nothing more than coming after people and companies with which she disagrees. So sorry that this is now. No one's even trying to cancel her. We just want to know like what the hell's going on. She never really addressed anything.
The whole thing about, you're harassing my family.
No one cares.
Threats coming at you. Do they know where you live? Don't you have security? Like, it's just ridiculous.
Right. It's like you're rich enough to have
sympathy. Yeah.
Private security. You're fine. And so the next day, Twitter comes out and like takes a stand against QAnon people. Twitter's a he. Twitter blocks. Twitter, I feel like is a she. Twitter blocks or suspends or removes like thousands of QAnon accounts, like a couple big notable ones, one of which was Tommy G with like 250,000 followers. And he's kind of a bombastic dude. He definitely likes to push the envelope, and and then at this time, then Parler is coming up, and a lot of people are moving over there. Parler is like Twitter, but with actual free speech.
But like Parler, I just haven't been able to get into it.
It's a little bit more difficult to use. Yeah. I mean, it's like I love the idea, I love the energy behind it, but yeah, there is something a little bit like slightly more user friendly about Twitter. So anyway, like Twitter is bending over backwards, doing anything for Chrissy Teigen, blocking, suspending people, censoring people basically on her behalf. So her profile was going between private and public. And of course, each time that happened, that got its own press release. Like everyone's, she takes a shit. It's an article. So, and then, so there's basically that, like, and Twitter will do anything for her and celebrities, but they don't react very quickly to actual child porn being on Twitter, which I found because people sent it to me, and I was just like, oh, holy shit. Like people are sending me accounts.
Graphic images, or these like links?
Yikes. It's like really, it's really disturbing because I always thought like I'm 36 and never saw any child porn in my life. I always thought you had to go to like the deep dark web for that. Yeah. And then someone was just sending me like, hey, this account, it's legit on here. And so I clicked on it and I was like, whoa, I can't believe this is right here on Twitter in my pocket. This is fucking disgusting. So I'm like, report. And I'm like telling people, you got to report this account. This is really, really upsetting and disgusting. And then like, in the meantime, so we're getting the word out. It's good. A lot of people are like, I can't believe this is going on. People are sending me more accounts to try to take down. And I was like, wow. And I just got really like fired up because I was like, this is like, I just can't believe that this is so accessible and that these accounts aren't being automatically taken down. So in the process, like I was suspended because I wasn't like retweeting any of this crap, or like I wasn't obviously like favoriting retweeting. I was doing nothing like that. I was just like, here's the link to this account, like report it. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's possible people got confused and thought that I was the one, but I think it's really sad that like Twitter can't or won't differentiate between the people who make and distribute this shit and then the people who are trying to take it down, by being like, this is the account, just report it, So, and then I had to get my account back, I had to delete a couple tweets, which I was fine with. Like by the time I got the account back, hours and hours later, that one account was taken down. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine deleting the tweets, of course, because the account's gone. It's like a moot point. And then one of my tweets was like, when I was critical of Twitter, I was like, hey, Twitter, it took you 4 hours to acknowledge that I sent you a report. Like, thank God you guys aren't EMTs. And that was one of the tweets I had to delete to get my account back. So I'm like, okay, I guess they don't like anybody being critical of their response time.
Yeah, so ridiculous. Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, you don't like people being critical of you for not being able to take pedophilia down. Lovely.
Yeah. I was like, it's like, you guys, I think have enough brains, manpower to like have a division. And people were amazed at how difficult it was to actually report child porn on Twitter. Like there should be like, it should take 2 clicks.
That says like this is something.
You have to like go to a different page. You have to like go to a different thing, a different part of the website, and then like remember the name and like paste. And it's like, no, it should be like, you should be 2 clicks away from reporting that shit.
Yeah, it should be like reporting any other type of abuse on Twitter. It should be that easy. And I know it's easy, people go click and just bam, abuse.
Why is it easier to report hate speech than it is like actual child porn? It's so fucked up.
That's horrible. And have you gotten, have you tried to take it to the next level as far as interacting with Twitter on any next level to be like, what are you going to do about this?
No, I haven't. After that stuff happened, I like laid low a little bit because they were suspending like my friends, and I was like, all right, I don't want to get my whole account deleted because then like, what good am I to anybody if I, So you just kind of, unfortunately now in this like censorship time, knowing when to like pick your battles and, I think I can do more good by the people I talk with and have podcasts with. Like John Paul Rice is a Hollywood producer. He's done a lot of work. He's very knowledgeable about like child sex trafficking and how it relates to Hollywood and the history of it all. And I did an episode with him. I'm looking to do another one with him pretty soon because he can talk. It was a 2.5 hour episode, which never happens.
Sam.
Yeah.
It's like you're going Joe Rogan style with that.
It was a lot. It was too long, but he just like wouldn't shut up, but in a good way. Like he had a lot to say and he's very knowledgeable. So yeah.
Yeah. So wait, what is that? Just so we have the context. So what films has he done? Can you pull it off the top of your head?
God, he did this film, A Child's Voice, which was like a documentary, and it was available on Amazon for a while, like at least a couple of years, but it was recently taken down after the Epstein stuff, which is like, it's pretty telling, that like Amazon took it down in US and many other countries. Cause it's like, why would that be taken down if they're not kind of trying to like shush everybody up on that topic?
Oh,
so
Remember the Titans.
Yeah. Yes. That was the one.
That's a big
I did not remember the Titans. Turns out I forgot the Titans. So yeah, he did work on that.
Irony.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So like I said, we're about at the end of an hour. So I want to ask you one weird question, and then we'll go into our bonus content. So, Chrissie, you are a redhead who now identifies as more or less libertarian. Have you noticed the bizarre trend of female redheads that are attracted to the libertarian mindset? Have you seen this?
I have not noticed this at all.
Okay.
Is this really a thing?
I swear to God, it's a thing. So there's all these Twitter accounts that are like the redheaded libertarian or a libertarian redhead or redheads for liberty. And they're all women. And they're all pretty good looking ladies. And they just, for some reason, there's like this thing where redheaded ladies are attracted to liberty. And there's like everywhere you look, a ton of them. And it's inexplicable. We don't know how to explain the phenomenon.
I guess it's easier to dye your hair red than it is to dye it white or blue. I don't know. I don't have an explanation for this. I think, right, because it's like dyeing your hair red. It's like not the most common. You have to be a little kooky to like go out of your way.
Are you revealing a secret? Are you not a natural redhead?
No, God,
Get
no. I'm
off
like
of
a
my
dark
podcast.
blonde. I'm like a dark blonde. So it's
All
been
right.
redder. This is summer red. It's like more strawberry.
Maybe it's like an independent kind of thinking thing, like the redheads
wonder.
stand
It's very
out in the
interesting.
crowd. Very independent. Yeah, I'm telling you
More
now that
unstable, not about the norm. And the norm is
Mhm.
like for sure blonde, brunette, some kind of highlight, an ombre maybe.
Yeah, there you go. The old lady
yeah.
add a streak of pink in your hair, even though you're 60 look.
Oh,
also
yeah.
very popular now.
Hanging out at art museums. Yeah. A lot of flowing clothing.
All right. Well, I will wrap this episode up. Like I said, we're going to do a little bit of bonus interview with Chrissie. If you guys want to hear it over at the Lions of Liberty Pride, you just go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. Chrissie, you've been a great guest. Where can everybody listen to you? And of course, I will also post this on the show notes for the page when I post them on our website. But tell everybody where they can find you locally, nationally, podcastily, etc.
Follow me on all the things at Chrissie Mayr, CHRISSIE MAYR, Parler, Facebook, Instagram, not so much TikTok anymore. But yeah, all the things. And then the Chrissie Mayr podcast is on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, 4 days a week. New episodes come out every day. And I have a show called Never Have I Ever, which is like a fluffy group Zoom where we tell stories. And it's like, never have I ever had a threesome. And then you hear about somebody's threesome story. And then the Wet Spot on Compound Media is every Monday at 7:30 p.m. EST, compoundmedia.com. Lots of other really great shows on that network, including the great Michael Malice, Anthony Cumia. A lot of talent there too. So if you're like into this humor, you would enjoy Compound Media.
This crowd would very much enjoy it. I could promise you that. All right. Well, once again, thank you so much. And we will continue this on.
Bye.
So there you go. Again, thank you to Chrissie Mayr for coming on the show. I had fun talking to her. Guys, we have fun talking to everybody here at the Lions of Liberty. And that's how I am hoping you will subscribe and stay subscribed to our variety show format. And also, before I wrap the show up, I wanted to tell you about a new shirt we have at the Lions of Liberty store, lionsofliberty.store. And that is a Taxation is Death t-shirt wherein we spell it out for people that just don't fucking get it. We have a plain dropping bombs made of money because that's what taxation leads to in a very literal, physical, and visceral sense. So check that out, lionsofliberty.store. Taxation is death. So that'll do it. From me, Brian McWilliams, from the Lions of Liberty, and from Electric Liberty Land, always stay plugged into liberty.